Hi, I'm Skylar, and today I'm here to answer a question about your iPod Touch. Why is my battery life draining so fast? Well, there are a couple of different things that could be going on. First of all, let's think about your environment. You and me both operate within a certain range of temperatures, about 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Beyond that, it's a little bit tough for us to do anything. Interestingly enough, an iPod is the same way. If it's hotter than 98 degrees Fahrenheit, you could actually permanently damage your iPod by using it for any significant period of time, and the same is true if it's below freezing. So if you have used your iPod in temperatures beyond those ranges in the past, there's a chance that you could have diminished your battery capacity a little bit. The same is true as if you're currently using an iPod in those conditions. So that's the first thing I think about. The next thing I would consider are things that are going on in the background when you're not using them. So examples of those are notifications. If I am a Facebook user and I've got it set up so that Facebook is always sending me messages as soon as they appear on my Facebook account, that means that my iPod kind of has to sleep with one eye open. And just like you and me, if you're sleeping with one eye open, you're not going to sleep really well. So what I'm going to do is go to my home screen and tap Settings. From Settings, I see Notifications at the very top. Go to Notifications, and then I see all the applications that I have installed. So in my particular case, Messages is probably going to be the best thing to look at. Messages gives me a few different options. And if I want, I can disable some things that are going to save me a little battery life. Same thing is true of email, of, as I mentioned before, Facebook or Pinterest or any social network. Basically, anytime you install an app that reaches out elsewhere for information, the first time you run it, it'll ask you if you will allow it to send you push notifications. If you say OK, it'll turn on notifications, and at that point, you're back to sleeping with one eye open. So if you want to maximize your battery life, don't sleep with one eye open. It's that simple. Another thing to check is your email. So if I go to Mail, Contacts, and Calendars, the first thing I see are my accounts. In my case, iCloud. And then underneath that, I see Fetch New Data. If I tap Fetch New Data, the first thing I see at the top is Push. What it says underneath that is New Data will be pushed to your iPod from the server. Again, what that means is that your iPod is keeping one eye on the server, because as soon as something comes in, it pushes it to your iPod and your iPod downloads it. That's whether or not you want it to happen. And that means your iPod is using a little bit of its energy to go out and get that data. So I'm actually going to turn Push off. And then down here, we see Fetch. That's when I, the user, elect to go out and get information. So down at the bottom, manually, means that it's only going to fetch information from the server if I open the Mail app. That means that I'm in control of when email comes to my device. So it's not using battery life for that purpose when I'm not paying attention. Third, I want to think about things that I'm doing. An iPod will give you about 40 hours of music playback, and actually about 10 hours of video playback. If you're playing games, you're probably going to see a bit less than that because the processor has to work really hard in order to do all those calculations, especially 3D games. Angry Birds, not so much. Need for Speed, definitely. So think about what you're doing because that can affect your battery life. Finally, think about multitasking. If you double-click your home button, this little tray pops up. And this tray, if you swipe to the left, gives you a couple options for controlling media. And if you swipe back to the right, shows you applications that are currently running. Now, applications here are technically in a suspended state. So they're not actually consuming any system resources. They're not using your RAM. They're not using any computational power of the CPU. They're just kind of hanging out, taking a nap. There are some applications, though, like Facebook, that do things while they're not active. So sometimes you'll notice a little triangle in the upper right-hand corner of your device. So if I open up Maps, for example, and I tap this arrow down here in the lower left, it wants to use my current location. I'll say yes. And now I see this little purple arrow. If I'm ever using my iPod and I see that little purple arrow, it means that my location is being accessed for some reason. If that's happening, it means that it's communicating with a Wi-Fi router somewhere, and that's using a little bit of electricity. So that's a pretty basic list of all the things that you should think about before you schedule an appointment at the Genius Bar. If you think about all those things, if you've updated your software and still you're finding that your battery life is no good, schedule an appointment, go talk to the Genius. They'll probably help you out. I'm Skylar. Thanks for watching.